We are back for another video right now on the Titans. I want to jump right into it. Obviously, the Titans last year were really bad. We're going to talk about it, but now that the first pick in the draft pick Cam Ward, we are definitely going to talk about the impact Cam Ward can have in year one. Take a look at the depth chart, what the Titans are kind of looking like so far headed into the 2025 NFL season, and just how much they can really regroup and improve from last year. I'm going to keep this quick and painful for Titans fans. Recap of last year: Will Levis was not very good. 2,000 yards, 13 touchdowns to 12 interceptions. Mason Rudolph, 1,500 yards, 9 touchdowns to 9 interceptions. It is what it is. You just didn't have an answer at quarterback. Rushing wise, Tony Pollard was solid. He had 1,000 rushing yards with 5 touchdowns. Also, Tajay Spears had 312 and 4 touchdowns as well. So the running game was somewhat decent, but again, you're a 3-win team, so you really didn't have a lot of bright spots in this entire roster. You could argue Tony Pollard was one of the very few sort of bright spots. And then Calvin Ridley, 1,017 receiving yards and 4 touchdowns. Also, Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, 497 yards, but 9 touchdowns. That guy was just all over it last year as far as getting in the end zone. Chika Okonkwo, 479 and 2 touchdowns. And then after that, Boyd with 380. It just kind of drops off. One thing I want to point out, though, is Treylon Burks, 5 games played, 34 yards, no touchdowns. Yikes. That was the guy. When you traded A.J. Brown, you immediately drafted Treylon Burks, and just not going well. It's a bummer. I was rooting for him. He was put in a tough position considering the Titans just traded away a perfectly great receiver. So I was rooting for Burks. I thought he had some potential. I feel like he showed some flashes, but it's been really tough sledding for him. And now with a whole kind of new coaching staff in there, new front office, there was just no reason for them to keep him unless he shows something, which he's not. So kind of a bummer. And overall, Titans receiving core, not good. Once again, Titans defense, not much better. Harold Landry's first year back, I believe, after tearing his ACL in the year prior. So that's nice to see. Jeffrey Simmons, their defensive tackle. Kenneth Murray there. I believe he led the team in total tackles. Quandre Diggs they got for safety, but I mean, this just wasn't a good team. It's the fastest way I can summarize it. Your big signing, though, in the offseason was L'Jarius Sneed, of course, who you brought in from Kansas City, but he only played in 5 games, so a bit of a bummer. But now let's get a little bit more kind of excited, a bit optimistic now for this side of the video. I didn't want to spend too much time dwelling on that 3-14 season. I'm sure Titans fans didn't really want the reminder. But there's a lot of things to look forward to, I think. Now, I'm going to be very clear here. In my opinion, I'm not predicting this team to get probably more than 7 wins. I still don't think they're going to be very good. But to be fair, I don't want to crush any Titans fans' dreams. And if you're super overly optimistic, look at the Commanders last year. Heading into the season, I believe their season win total was set at like 3.5, higher or lower than 3.5, and they went to the NFC Championship. So I mean, anything can happen. Again, do I think it's likely? No, but again, anything can happen. That Washington Commanders team didn't look that great heading into the year either. Some parts, and look what they put together. So you never know just how much a young quarterback can truly change that team. So starting with the Titans here. Cam Ward for quarterback, Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears for running backs, Calvin Ridley, Tyler Lockett, and Treylon Burks wide receivers. We'll come back to that. Chika Okonkwo for tight end, Dan Moore, Peter Skoronski, Corey Levin, Kevin Zeitler, and J.C. Latham make up the offensive line. So I want to highlight the receiving core because, not to point out the obvious, but this is going to make or break Cam Ward's rookie year. Obviously, as everyone knows, receivers are very important to a quarterback, especially a rookie quarterback. Last year, we saw, I'm going to compare this to the Commanders once again, we saw with the Commanders, not a very good receiving core on paper. You had, going into the year, you had Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson, then 2 weeks before the season starts, Jahan Dotson's traded off. And all of a sudden, McLaurin is the only real proven receiver there for a rookie quarterback, and it worked out just fine. So you never know how things can work out. But again, I will say, on paper, this does not look good, and the Titans need someone to step up. Now, you can say, oh, they need Burks to step up. They need, a solid veteran season out of Tyler Lockett. They need Ridley to have that kind of 1,300-yard season. In my opinion, you look for Alec. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna mess up his last name. I'm sorry. I think it's Io Manor. I'm just gonna call him that for the rest of the video. So I really apologize if it's pronounced incorrectly. I always do that. I am sorry. But for real though, they drafted him in this draft. I think they definitely plan on using him, to be honest with you, because when you look at the guys ahead of him, I mean, Ridley's spot is secure. That's kind of it. Even Lockett, I love Tyler Lockett. I think he's one of Honestly, over the past 10 years, one of the most underrated wide receivers in the entire NFL. However, at this stage in his career, nothing's really guaranteed. I will say veteran receivers going to Tennessee have a pretty bad track record as well, so I'm not going to predict Lockett to have this really solid season for them. But I do think the rookie receiver coming in can add a lot to this team, and they need that boost. They need someone to step in there and be a big-time playmaker for Cam Ward, because in my opinion, the Titans don't have that, and that's the little bit of worry I have, because when you look at the Commanders last year, as rough as that looked, you knew you had Terry McLaurin, you had Brian Robinson Jr., and you had Austin Eckler. And Eckler was older, but you could kind of count on him to contribute a little bit in the passing and the receiving game. That's what you absolutely have to have from Tony Pollard, because I don't think there's anyone else on this team that's going to do that in a way that is as versatile as what Tony Pollard has proven he can do in the past. Whether that will happen, I don't know, because you can also point to last year and say, well, it wasn't a great year for him. It was solid, but not much more than that. But to be fair, you can also point to quarterback and say, well, with a huge change now, though, can Pollard take that next step at running back one? Can he provide that extra effort in the receiving game and the ground game? And I think it's absolutely a possibility, especially when you take into account Tyjae Spears, who is, I think, has a lot of potential. If you keep him more on the ground, maybe, then have Pollard receiving game and rushing game, have Spears in the receiving game a little bit, I think you can be creative, because I think Cam Ward is good enough to where he's going to elevate everyone on this offense. So I really expect the Titans to kind of dig deep in their bag this year. You got to pull something out here to make this team exciting, because the Titans have not been exciting in a few years now, since Derrick Henry was there. But I'd even argue not even Henry's last year there was the most exciting team in the world. I would say it was probably around 2020 was when they were honestly really exciting. So it's been a little minute, and I think Cam Ward gives them the possibility of kind of putting that spark back on offense. Cam Ward is a great passer. He was, in my opinion, by far QB1 in the draft. He can throw it from different angles with his arm, different velocity on it. He has a nice deep ball. He's a good improviser. He's sneaky athletic. He reads defenses very well. There's a lot of things he does very, very well, and it seems like he is just fully committed. His attitude has seemed like, up until this point, that he is committed to just football, fully focused on football, and willing to give it all to whoever franchise drafted him, and that was the Titans. So I have really high hopes for Cam Ward in year one. Now, I mentioned Tony Pollard as someone who could really have their potential unlocked thanks to Cam Ward. I think Chig Okonkwo is also someone that could have their potential unlocked thanks to Cam Ward. Chig Okonkwo is a great tight end. I think he's shown a lot of great things in the past couple seasons, but he hasn't had that proven passer at quarterback to let him really shine, and I think this is absolutely the moment for this to happen. And to be fair, I said the receiving core is a little rough. If you get Chig Okonkwo really in stuff a bit more and just utilized a lot heavier, that can really change the dynamic of this Titans offense and open up a lot of other options for them. So I think to be successful this year, they need someone at receiver to step up, get Chig Okonkwo more involved, and see if Cam Ward can really give Tony Pollard that extra boost to really show what he's really capable of doing. Also, worth noting, Pollard will be further removed from that compound fracture he had in his ankle lower leg. So again, that's also very nice to hear. Now, usually when I do these videos, especially in like the off season, I would take a look at the schedule and give like a rough kind of breakdown what I think is going to happen just over the course of the season. However, we're doing this so early, the schedule actually isn't out yet, so I can't exactly do that. I do want to circle back though to the receiving core just for another kind of note on here. So let's say, just kind of throwing this out here, that Ridley has a great season, Lockett has a solid veteran season, and then as far as Burks or Van Jefferson or Io Manor, whoever steps up in there, that is good enough to be a, I'm not going to say fringe playoff team in the AFC because it's just such a competitive conference, and all of a sudden in this division you have the Jaguars, the Texans, and the Colts, who are also all on a very similar level for the most part. It's going to be tough. However, I think if everything goes right, which, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, if everything does go right, I do think the Titans could hit around, I would say their absolute max for me as of right now, not even seeing the schedule, I would say is 7 to 8 wins, which would be a very big improvement from 3 wins, in my opinion. I say, because looking at this, you don't have a lot of great players, just to be, kind of blunt about it. But Cam Ward's amazing, and I think he can elevate a lot of these guys. So a 4 to 5 win increase in one off season after a 3-win season, I think would be amazing for the Titans. I think a more realistic prediction would be about 5 to 6 wins, but in my opinion, I see there being no possibility that there's not at least some sort of improvement with getting Cam Ward in there, because I was very high on him going into the draft. I thought it was definitely a weaker quarterback class, but Cam Ward is more than ready to be in the NFL, in my opinion. And I do think it's easy to look at the Titans roster and say, oh man, Calvin Ridley's not that great. Tony Pollard's kind of mid. Tajay Spears is kind of mid. But it's like at the same time, these guys have not had a quarterback like this in a long time, if at all. You know, for Calvin Ridley, it's probably Matt Ryan. It was the last time he had a proven quarterback. For Tony Pollard, it was probably a healthy Dak. So it's been a little bit. And I think when you get a fresh young quarterback in there, a lot of things can change. We saw that in Washington last year, where a lot of veteran guys, they stepped up. Like Zach Ertz. I mean, he had a great year for Washington last year. So that's why I think if Cam Ward can get in here and really elevate this team like I think he will, the Titans could see even more of an improvement than they might think, honestly, in year one, at least in my opinion. Now, let me know down below what you guys think, though, especially if you're a Titans fan. Let me know. Do you have high hopes for this year? Are you assuming it's a little improvement? At the end of the day, it's a very competitive AFC. I mean, if you're at the top of the AFC or even somewhat competitive at the top of the AFC, it's possible to make a Super Bowl run, because I think it's just that level of competition at the top in the AFC right now. But you got to start somewhere to get there. And I think the Titans are laying down some nice groundwork. I think they had a nice draft. You had to get quarterback, though. And if Cam Ward is the guy they want him to be, I think you already can just stash him away. You have your franchise quarterback. Continue building up the rest of this roster. And let's see the Titans compete again. I think it's very possible we can see them compete this year and maybe be one of those teams that kind of ruin some other teams' seasons later in the year, kind of play spoiler a little bit, even if they're not in the playoffs. I think they can make it competitive and be fun to watch. So thank you guys for watching. I do really appreciate it, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.